Hello and welcome to episode 161 of My Circus, My Monkeys. It is August, which for most of you means lots of prep for back to school, followed immediately by actual back to school. It's an exciting, yet often overwhelming time. Now, I've done some August 911 episodes in the past, but today I want to focus on how you and your team can harness your superpowers to make back to school efforts more productive and less stressful. So keep listening. Okay, I'm going to try and make this as succinct as possible because I know y'all got lots of stuff on your plate. At the end of the episode, I'm going to walk you through a process that I think is really going to help you and your team be more productive and less stressed during this back to school time. But before we get to the step by step, I want to make sure that I explain why this is so important for you and your team's success and your well being as you go into the new school year. So, first, and probably pretty obviously, when I talked about harnessing your superpowers, I was talking about your talent themes, AKA your talents, AKA your strengths. So, from a Clifton Strengths perspective, your and your team members' top five or even top 10. But it's important to remember that your superpowers can also be your kryptonite, especially during stressful times. Everyone favors their own talents. And just as a reminder, our working definition of talent is a naturally occurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. Your talents color the way you see and interpret the world and impact how you think, feel, and behave in it. And because those things come so easily for you, you default to those ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. And often you kind of assume that that's how everybody else sees the situation, or at least how they should see the situation. These talent themes can give us powerful insights that other people definitely don't have, but it can also cause us to overvalue the way we perceive tasks, situations, and people. And when you go into crazy times like this, that can mean you miss opportunities to be more productive and use less energy to complete your objectives. Remember, you're on autopilot 95 to 99% of the time. That means these talents, these things that you do best, are automatically showing up and doing the things you've trained them to do automatically throughout the day. When those things help you achieve your goals quickly and efficiently, they are showing up as strengths, but they can also get in your way and distract you from the very thing you're trying to accomplish. And often you don't even know that it's happening. You have to be mindful to catch it, and you literally cannot be mindful when you're on autopilot. Now, I'll use myself as an example. I was in Res Life and typically at a smaller institution, so I oversaw all the components of training, and I loved doing it. But almost every year, things got a little out of control. Ideation is my number one talent theme. So I spent most of July coming up with awesome and often elaborate ideas for fall training for my team. And again, I loved it. But that was kind of part of the problem. I so loved coming up with new ideas that I spent way too long on that part of the process. Now, eventually, I would shift to getting things organized and finished, but it was typically so close to the actual training date that I didn't have time to implement everything. I overindulged my ideation. And I have strategic in my top five too, and it was involved in the planning stage in terms of making sure I didn't leave any important things out of my grand design, but I didn't apply it in terms of realistically completing all those things until it was too late. And this typically left me rushing, exhausted, and disappointed that all my grand ideas did not make it into training. And I guarantee you, everyone on your team are doing similar things. You're spending too much time and energy focused on the things that your brain enjoys doing, or at the very least, that your brain is most comfortable doing, instead of maximizing your time and energy to complete whole projects effectively and efficiently. That is why you need to lean on each other during this busy back to school season. Folks on your team with different talent themes see things in different ways and can help you readjust your approach to that to-do list. And in many situations, they can actually help you get things done that you never really wanted to do in the first place because they love doing those things. Again, back to school season, when other people on my team, like, oh, I'm also doing training or I'm getting ready for this, that, and the other thing, but I can't think of what to do, I was more than happy to do a timeout for 10 minutes and help them come up with ideas. Okay, so before I walk you through my suggested team activity, I want to talk about the 4 domains for a hot second. And I do think I did an earlier episode on the 4 domains, but either way, let's do a quick review. At the core, you need to remember that the strengths philosophy is that you focus on the things that you do best, again, your top 5 or 10, and surround yourself with folks who do the other things that you don't do well. You don't want to be a well-rounded person. You want a well-rounded team. You need to focus on your top 5 or 10, but that also means you need to remember you're missing parts of the big picture simply because you don't think, feel, or behave in terms of talent themes that you don't have. That's where the 4 domains come in. Gallup divided all 34 talent themes into 4 subcategories: executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And when you are thinking about maximizing your team and getting things off your plate and accomplished, you want to make sure all 4 categories are represented in your game plan. Now, each of us leads with one of those 4 categories. And if you're not sure which one you lead with, go back and check your top 5 report. Gallup color codes each of these categories, so you also should be easily able to see which of your top 5 or 10 fall within each of the 4 domains. Now, if you don't already know or remember from the last episode, here are a basic description of each of the domains, as well as some potential pitfalls. So people with dominant executing talent themes know how to get things done. That means the focus for them is typically on accomplishment. The more things you do any day reflects how much you've accomplished. Now, some challenges that executing folks often face are because they are so focused on the doing, they might miss seeing ways to influence others to make that doing easier. Creating relationships that allow you to partner with others to get better and faster results. And being strategic about what actually goes on to that to-do list. Are you doing the right things? Not everything. Okay. People with dominant influencing talent themes know how to take charge, speak up, and advocate for the team. That means the focus is on connecting others, but in a way to move them into action for you. Some challenges influencing folks often face are that you or they are so focused on influencing others that you might miss getting the actual necessary tasks and projects done without staying late or taking things home. Creating deeper relationships that allow you to partner with others to get better and faster results. And being strategic about who you're influencing and when, versus factoring in the other things you may need to accomplish to get those projects, those tasks completed. Okay. People with dominant relationship building themes have the ability to build strong relationships that hold the team together and elevate the team's performance. That means their focus, your focus, is on fostering and maintaining those relationships. Now, some challenges that relationship building folks often face are that you or they are so focused on those relationships that you might miss Again, getting necessary tasks and projects done without staying late or taking things home. Seeing ways to influence others to make your path easier, and being strategic about who to build relationships with and when to spend time strengthening those relationships again versus other things that may need to happen for you to achieve your goals. And then finally, people with dominant strategic thinking talent themes help teams consider what could be. They absorb and analyze information to inform better decisions. So the focus here is on big picture and ways to move forward. Now, some challenges that strategic thinking folks often face, and that is 100% me, are that I, or perhaps you, are so focused on the big picture that I often miss doing the necessary tasks and projects without staying late or taking things home. Seeing ways to influence others to make the path easier, and creating late relationships that allow me, or perhaps you, to partner with others to get better and faster results. To be really effective, your team needs to be well-rounded here. Again, I lead with strategic thinking talent themes. My ideation perfectly illustrates this problem. I am all about big picture planning, but if I don't monitor how my talent themes are showing up automatically, I will spend way too much time ideating and not enough time putting those ideas into action. One of my challenges is that I literally don't have any executing talent themes in my dominant talents. If you look at my full 34 report, the first executing talent I have is number 16, responsibility. And that means I have to be especially mindful to make sure I'm spending part of my energy doing the things necessary to put those visions into action. Now, for me, sometimes that involves hiring outside help to focus on the doing. And just like I'm planning or suggesting in this episode, it absolutely involves checking in with folks around me who have different perspectives, AKA talents, AKA lead with a different domain, to make sure I'm spending my energy on the right things, not just the things that my brain prefers doing, which is again coming up with ideas. So you and your team need to be more mindful of where you excel and where your blind spots are when you are on autopilot. Again, remember, you and your team are on autopilot 95 to 99% of the time, and back to school time is really towards the 99%. That means you are going to default to the things your brain feels most comfortable doing, even if those are not the right things for you to accomplish your objectives. Got it? Okay. Now, even though you lead with one particular domain, I'm sure you have talent themes in other domains that can help you avoid some of these pitfalls on your own if, and that's a giant capital if, capital letter if you are being mindful about it. But that can be challenging, especially during stressful times. Okay. That's where your team can be a huge help in keeping you from hyper focusing on one domain or even one specific talent theme. If your talents are superpowers, think of your teammates as your sidekicks. Or I guess with the Avengers and all those types of things, not even sidekicks, just fellow superheroes. But they help keep you on the right path and focused on the things that will allow you to accomplish your goals most effectively. So when you partner with them, you get even better results because you have supporting superpowers. Now, let's walk through the process that I recommend that will maximize your team's time and energy so you can get the most important things done for the fall semester. Now, the first step is going to sound very controversial. So please bear with me and listen to the whole thing before you decide you just don't have time. Okay. First, you need to schedule a meeting with your team ASAP. I know you don't want to. I know they don't want to. But trust me, if you do this and follow the next steps, it will 100% be worth it. It does not have to be an all-day thing, but I would say at least an hour if you have a small team and maybe 2 if you have a larger team. Now, as a caveat, I will just add that the folks who lead with executing talent themes are absolutely going to be the ones who put up the biggest resistance to this meeting. Possibly that's you. Why? Because executors are about doing, and having a meeting isn't doing, right? But as much as doing is important, it's not as important as doing the right things, not necessarily everything. Because I guarantee executors on your to-do list, there's a bunch of stuff that you don't need to do right now. You think you do because it's on a to-do list, but that is not accurate. Okay. But we all have these blind spots. Okay. So when you have this meeting, what I want you to do is invite everyone to this meeting slash make them come. Ask them to bring their to-do list. And it doesn't have to, like the executing talent theme folks are going to have a very detailed list. That's great. Other people may not have such a super detailed list, but all it needs to really contain are their major responsibilities for the month. And ideally, if they have the capacity, things that are involved in the first week or two when students get back to campus, because we have to plan it all now, right? Okay. You'll also ask them to bring their top 5 or 10 report, especially if they don't have them memorized or you don't frequently talk about them. If you talk about strengths all the time, they probably don't need it because they just know them off the top of the head, but off the top of their head. But if not, just ask them to bring the report so they can, because there'll be a little reflecting here, okay? Now, at this meeting, you can either play the first part of this episode to explain what's going on or just do it in your own words. And basically, you want to help them and you maximize the time and energy that you collectively have so everyone is more productive. Plus, they have more time and energy for their own well-being. So this is a win-win-win situation. Okay. Once everyone is together, have folks identify which of the 4 domains they lead with. And if you guys happen to have a team grid that shows everyone's top 5 or 10, that would also come in handy if you have it. If not, don't worry about it, okay? Now, strengths isn't about putting labels on people, but in this case, you want to know which of the 4 domains they lead with, because that way they and other people on the team can quickly identify their strength, but also their potential weak spots, okay? And this will allow people to find complementary partners on the team that can help support them in domains where they're not as talented, okay? Now, I do have a 2-page handout that we use in the Supervisor Strengths Institute that you can download in this episode's show notes that you can use to organize the next few steps. Or you can just whip something, you can just have people use blank pieces of paper or whip something up yourself that hits on these points, whatever you would like to do. But again, you can download it for free if you would like. Okay. First, on that worksheet or on a separate piece of paper, have everyone choose a decent sized project that they need to get done for back to school. So it could be planning RA training, planning freshman orientation, planning welcome week. It could also be something like creating a manual or a new class curriculum. It just needs to be something that has multiple steps. Okay. Once they've done that, have folks write it at the top of the worksheet or blank piece of paper, as well as the specific objectives they need to accomplish for that project. So I wouldn't write just RA training because that's super vague. Okay. I would also add bullet points about the purpose of RA training. So things like the RAs will understand and practice what they need to do in a variety of emergency situations. The RAs will understand how to build a community on their floor and have an action plan in place for the semester. The RAs will learn and practice how to resolve conflict between folks on their floor, etc. So again, and another way to think about this is to ask them to describe how they'll know they've been successful once that thing's over. Like what specific learning objectives, or not necessarily learning, they were learning for RA training, but what specific objectives do you need to accomplish with this task, with this project, okay? Because that's what you need to keep in mind when everyone's creating their action plan. Because it gets, again, when we focus like, oh, well, I need to have something fun and exciting for RA training so people enjoy it. Okay, that's a very small portion of it, but how does that, like if I'm spending all my time there, then I might not be spending enough time working in the emergency situation stuff or the community stuff. Okay. We want to be aligned with those final objectives. Okay. So, and again, like if we had all the time and the resources in the world, yeah, like let's just do everything we want, but we don't have that right now. So you need to be able to prioritize the things that will contribute the biggest ROI in terms of those objectives. And again, those things may not be your first instinct based on your talent themes. Okay. So after we do that, pick a project, the actual objectives that we need it to accomplish. Next, have everyone write down their top 5 or 10, for time's sake, probably just top 5, and have them reflect how each of those top 5 could help them achieve those outcomes and how they might get in the way. Again, for example, I would put ideation would help me create a unique training program, but it might get in my way because I could create too many new ideas for me to realistically put into play that will distract me from some of the core components. And again, this is an important step because it gives you and your team members insights into how your talent themes will most likely show up on autopilot. Because that's what we're wrestling with here. And if you're using my worksheets, I would also say just at the top of this portion, or again on sheet of paper, have them write down what their dominant, which of the 4 domains they lead with as well. So that way it's just all in one place. Okay. All right. Next. On the next page, if you are using my worksheets or just on another piece of paper, have folks write out what they think the action steps are for them to accomplishing their objectives. And again, some people are going to have a really detailed list, and some people might forget things or might not have that fully thought out. Because again, if I'm not a strategic planner and I'm a doer, I may not have, or I'm busy influencing. If I'm busy wooing people, like I may not have gotten that far in the planning, which again is fine. It's fine. And that's what this whole project is about. Okay. So it's going to come together for everybody in the next few steps. Okay. So when you're creating these action steps, part of this process is to decide who is the best person to accomplish each step. And again, we're reflecting like if I know ideation is going to get in my way at a certain point, maybe I'm not the best person to do some of these. Okay. Doesn't mean I won't have to, but we need, like, if there's, I know somebody else is on my, like somebody else on my team coming up with ideas for their training. I'm clearly the best person for that job. So, like it's not about, oh, I'm going to farm out all my tasks, but it's about being aware of the superpowers that are within your team. Okay. Boom. All right. So, and again, when you and the folks on your team stay in your strength zone, you are more positive, creative, and productive. Okay. And again, yes, I have a lot of stuff myself, but me taking a 10-minute break to help somebody come up with great ideas gives me energy. And that spreadsheet you don't want to do, or definitely I don't want to do, somebody else could do it real fast and they would actually enjoy doing it. Okay. So we want it to be a fair exchange, and we're getting to the exchange part in a hot second, but it's not about you getting rid of all your tasks, but how can we help each other? Because that is my strength zone, and what would take you 2 hours, I can do in a half or even 10 minutes. Okay. Boom. All right. So now we have our project, we have the objectives, we've thought about how our own talent themes can help or perhaps get in the way. We have a decent size list of action steps and potentially who is the best person to do it. Some of it will be, me if I'm filling out the form, and some of it will be other people on the team who I happen to know are good at those things. Okay. So now it's time to maximize your superpowers. And you can do this part in a couple of different ways, and I'm not trying to make this complicated, but just think about which one would work best for your team, you and your team, okay? But essentially, what you're doing is you're having people share that project and what they wrote out with others on the team to get feedback on ways they could be more effective and again, avoid their own personal pitfalls. So if you have a relatively small team, you can have each person talk through their plan really quick and get the feedback just verbally. Okay. Or you could have everyone just kind of share the worksheets with the person next to them. They read them, write some notes, and then you keep going around until everybody's seen everybody's. Okay. Again, whatever your team would rather do. Now, if you have a larger team, you can simply put folks into smaller groups using those options. You can also pair people up based on their strengths slash the which of the four domains they lead with. So that way you're not matching two people who are in executing together or two strategic thinkers, that sort of thing. So you want to have variety so that people aren't just getting their own beliefs and ways of thinking reinforced, okay? And again, the whole point of this is to get feedback from folks who think differently and do differently to figure out how to maximize or minimize the chances that any member is going to go through this busy season just defaulting to their talents showing up as weaknesses and getting in their way. Okay. And so this can take several forms. It could be that someone volunteers and say, oh my gosh, I could help you do that in like 10 minutes, or I could do that for you in 10 minutes. Okay. Which now that saved me 2 hours. So what a good, how wonderful. It could be someone reminding someone to add, like, oh, have you thought about adding this to your action plan? Because they didn't originally consider it because that's not the way they think. That can be really helpful, as opposed to when that thing is supposed to be done and you're like, oh my God, I didn't blank. Catching it early, very, very helpful. It might show up as someone suggesting just a faster way to get things done, including not doing some of those action steps or some of the things on the to-do list, because it really, when you think about prioritizing and the ROI, doing that task isn't going to add that much to the final picture. So this might look like a strategic thinker helping an executing person trim their to-do list so they're focused on the most important tasks first. Or it could be an influencer connecting someone with someone else on campus that could help them publicize their program or whatever that situation is, okay? But in a nutshell, you're giving or for me, having an executor sit down and say, okay, that's a lot of awesome ideas, Anne. How are you going to get this all done? And helping me just for a few minutes realistically think about how this is going to happen, okay? So in a nutshell, again, you're giving people an hour or two to come up with a better, more effective plan that aligns with the key objectives for that project. This hour is going to save everyone on your team at least that much time, if not more. Okay. Now, at least have everybody do one project, because that at least gets people, helps with that one thing and gets people in the mindset that there are people around them that can help them. But if time permits or people are like really excited about this, then do a few more projects, okay? Because again, this planning portion, like again, the stress is going to make us feel like we don't have time for it. But doing this saves us time, saves us energy, and makes us feel more centered, okay? This is also a great time to establish some accountability buddies who can make sure everybody's not defaulting back to unhelpful thought thought patterns or behaviors. So if I was doing this, I would ask someone to check on me about, and I would even set a meeting like, hey, I want you to come in 2 weeks before RA training is supposed to start to make sure I am done with ideas and can actually execute this. So I would choose an executor to do that. Okay. Or if I was an achiever, I might ask if it's okay. Like I might check with someone in this meeting and say, hey, I want to trim down this to do list. But I might ask, would it be okay if I check back with you a few times when I start having anxiety about the fact that I just took these off my list without doing them? Because that way the strategic person can explain why it's okay that you're not doing it. Because sometimes when we don't do the thing our brain wants, it can make us anxious, right? Okay. So this episode went a little bit longer than I'd hoped, but I hope that I explained it in a way that you really see the benefits. And the entire point of doing this, again, is to save your team time and energy that they can use to stay well and centered during this stressful time. And that's ultimately going to help your students. And you are doing this by maximizing the talent themes across your departments. Now, and again, I have worksheets that we use during the Institute to help structure this conversation, and you can download those in the show notes. I really, 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 I did 3 really, so you know I mean it. Encourage you to do this now, even though people think it would probably be better for them to just get to work because again, that's the stress talking, or that's the achiever or the executing mindset. But I guarantee I wasn't being as effective or efficient during planning RA training as I could have been because of all like the examples I gave you. They are also not. You're almost definitely not being as effective or efficient as you think you are. So, and again, this all goes back to the 3rd and 5th guiding principle of using Clifton strengths, which are differences are an advantage and people need one another. So please take a little time now to help one another so you can better plan, refocus where necessary, and support each other. And I promise everyone is going to have a better experience going into the fall semester. And until next time, stay strong.